Welcome to another episode of Soul Searcher with Natalie Brown. This is your journey to spiritual enlightenment and soul alignment, and I'm so excited to share more of my wisdom, more of my love, and to lead and serve with love, and to be able to help you create the life that you absolutely love. Welcome, everybody, to the Soul Searcher podcast. Today, I am joined by LeeAnn Mallorie. She is CEO and author of Guts and Grace, and I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for being here, LeeAnn.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm delighted to be here as well. Really excited about this conversation in this moment in time.
Yes, it is an exciting time that we're alive, and we get to talk about really exciting things, which is, bringing it really on the table for people to awaken them, bring it to consciousness, which is even more exciting. So tell me, where did it all start? Where did Guts and Grace all start for you?
Well, it's funny. Sometimes I tell the story of being, I don't know, it's probably 4 or 5, one of my earliest memories. And I was at a wedding and I was on the dance floor and I was dancing. And I think I was one of the few people at this wedding that was actually dancing. Maybe there was like one other young guy or something. And I remember thinking, as long as I keep dancing, everyone here is going to be okay and happy. And that's not how I usually answer the question. And I'm happy to share more details. But at this moment, I feel inspired to say that because I think the me that is the instigator of a different vibration, of something that might open people in a particular way, she just always kind of knew that was her work to do. And the me that does that through the body, through joy, through dance, through movement, and has had to find her way into working in businesses, corporations, working with people who have regular day jobs. Like it's been a real translation process of what the early imprint of, I think, what Guts and Grace has always been, has come through me as, and then like, how do you actually use that in the 3D world? That has been a process. But that is like the first thing that comes to mind when you ask the question. And then I'll just do like a quick fast forward and we can unpack pieces that are interesting to you if you wish. I spent a lot of time in dance, embodiment, movement practices. Our family business, I live in the US. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania in the US. Our family business was a baton twirling and drum corps school. So I spent a lot of time doing, tricks with a stick. Some people don't even really know what this is, but it's kind of an American thing. So I did a lot of that. I did musical theater. I took ballet. I took modern dance. I spent a lot of time doing that. Was my love. And I was a really smart kid and also did, study quite deeply, almost ended up as an architect, like went down a more technical path. So I had these kind of two sides of me that were like creative expression and movement and me like parts of my kind of feminine that just wanted to be only doing that. And then like really got the message from my parents that like, you're a smart kid, you need to get a real job and like go to real school and you can't just be a dancer. So I ended up going to school, doing a number of things, and found my way to my first real job after graduate school, which was at a boutique leadership training and consulting firm in San Francisco area. And we ran a business that was it was 25 days of training over the course of a year for executives and top teams. So it was like, here's this kid that thinks she would really just rather be a dancer and like spending all this time, doing what feels good. And then, deciding she needs to use her brain in some way and somehow finding her way into this very transformational container. So this company was very special. It was kind of a well-kept secret training that we didn't advertise a lot. Executives would send their friends there, like, oh, you need to know about this like secret thing. That was really like ego transformation mindset work, no embodiment at that time, not in this organization. But I got to work there for almost 10 years. And I really went from being a very, um, built for woo kind of young woman, young human, to being very fast tracked to be doing very, very high level business coaching and transformational coaching with people who are wielding a lot of power in the corporate sector, nonprofit sector, government sector. So that was like the making of me in a way. And along the way, as it was also a fairly traditional corporate culture, I started to burn out, kind of try to do this dance of how do I bridge these worlds. And I met a few teachers who were teaching somatic work and found my way back into my body, and then found my way back into, I would say, my spirit and my soul and my spirituality through the path of embodiment. So that's kind of the launch point, I would say, of the answer of where did Guts and Grace come from? What is this work? So origin stories.
Wow. Well, I'm so happy to hear that you started with, when you were little, because I believe that when we come here to this planet, that we already know what it is that we're going to be doing as children. And it's so beautiful that that feminine, beautiful energy has weaved through your life. And I feel definitely just listening to what you're saying is that you also needed to understand the more foundational part of the masculine part so that you could do the work that you came here to do or that you are doing today, especially within working with more kind of the corporate or the CEO, that foundational part. So, yes, listening to your story. And do you still dance today? Let me ask.
Absolutely. I do. I do. Well, so Guts and Grace is um came through around the time of starting to depart from that work because the body was missing, right? So I'm like, something's missing, the body is missing. I had to bring it back to be able to survive in that kind of context. And really, what I've learned over time is that my work is to be in those kinds of contexts, but to do it in a very feminine or very spiritual way, and to somehow make all of that fit, which is like this system's design is to do this. And it turns out there's a lot of people that that's so for. So those are my people. Um, but I would say the Guts and Grace body of work came through initially mostly coaching, working with training women who were in this context, who were probably similarly built to me, right? That there was some soul piece or some piece of their build that wasn't getting honored in that context. And what I found was that at that time, I started coming back to dance. I started learning more, learning from more bodies of work that were somatic and healing oriented, and also dance and movement oriented. I'm a black belt level, I don't teach now, but black belt level Nia technique instructor. I work with a conscious dance practice called Dancing Freedom, which was actually created initially in Australia. And I've been part of their international teaching team. So there are practices that I work with. I'm also a certified somatic coach and a teacher right now at the Strozzi Institute, which is a martial arts based embodied leadership school. So through bringing those things into my system and learning how to then offer them to some of my clients that weren't training in embodied work, but that could be good medicine for, began to write blogs, which eventually became the book, which eventually became the curriculum of Guts and Grace. And I'll often say, there's a lot of leadership training methodologies that come from science or that came from someone's idea, or they're kind of put together to be uh, a series of tools that are useful for something. For me, it was all, we could say, channeled, right? It was all divinely guided. It all came through my body, my practice. And then it kind of came together in this way. And I'm telling this very long story to say the first principle, the first of the 13 principles we work with in Guts and Grace, is really the joy of movement, which
Mm.
is takes inspiration from the Neo Technique body of work, and being able to access joy, aliveness, a certain kind of sensation through the physical body, through frankly very simple practices that anyone can do, but many of us are not doing if we're living inside of those contexts. So the very long answer to your very short question is yes, I still dance. And actually, I make all my clients do it as well.
Absolutely. Yes, there is.
It's total.
We are beings of flow. We cannot not move. Movement is part of us. And it's very interesting that you mentioned, about women. I feel that women, especially women in leadership, they have a certain perception around who they should be or what other people perceive them to be. And so often that disconnection from self actually shuts down the feminine side, the flowing side of women. And then it's just go, 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 doing, doing, doing. And we are, as women, are not meant to just be in the doing space. We're meant to be in the fun space and the pleasure space and the space that allows us to really expand and grow and transform. And that's the beauty of, really being able to work in the feminine flow space as well. And the joy that comes from accessing that part of you that you almost have forgotten about. Because, like I said, women in leadership, if they want to be at the top of their game, making lots of money, wealthy women, and that, have this sense of self, they sometimes lose themselves in the process. What would you
Totally.
like to say about that?
My gosh, so many things. I mean, this is why I do what I do. So we're right on purpose here. I mean, the first thing I would say is all of that, right? That everything about that, what you described that the feminine is, this, there's also the receptivity. So if I'm not making the money I want to make, I'm not receiving what I want to make, but I've sold out on the part of myself that knows how to receive, it's kind of no wonder. And, try convincing someone who's been socialized for 10, 20, 30. I have clients who've been in their industries for 30 years. I mean, I also have clients who've been in their industry for 2 years, but I do work with folks who are very steeped in the model of corporate culture, the patriarchy in many ways. And when I describe guts and grace, sometimes to the right people, I'll say it's a body of work that's about, in an embodied way, dismantling the patriarchy that we've embodied. So how do we do that? We take small actions that are disruptive to that. Like we dance when we don't think that we should, for example. Okay, then suddenly I can breathe again. Then suddenly I can access something again. What I found is that most women who have been in corporate for a while have sold out on some part of themselves. And it's almost like you have to do that to get to a certain level. But then I start hitting a ceiling, or then I find myself on a plateau. And I'm like, why can't I get through this? And it's not like the little plateau, it's like the career level plateau where I'm like, I've given everything. I'm really, really good at what I do. But now I seem to be stuck here. It doesn't make any sense. It makes sense though, because whatever the next awakening, whatever the next access point, whatever the next version of their power or thing that they're meant to create or serve or do, it's waiting for them to bring that next part of themselves back online. You know this. We were just talking before that you've gone through something in a transformation recently. I think I'm on the verge of another one myself, but it's like you can't have the next piece of your purpose or your mission or your contribution without the rest of you. So if you've lost those parts, it's not always fun. Sometimes it asks a lot, or there's a surrender there, or there's a looking at something you haven't been willing to look at there. But there is that part of the path for any woman, I think, to come into the fullness of what she can contribute. And goodness knows, right now we need women to do that. So what would you like to say about that? Because I feel like this is your work as well.
Yeah, I mean, my followers know I'm an advocate for all of this, to rise and to really access that next level greatness unapologetically. We apologize as women too much for who we are, for our passion, for our strength and our vulnerabilities and all of the things that we are. And so that holds us back, right? So it's about becoming unapologetic, not always knowing the next answer or the answer or the best way forward necessarily, because that kind of patriarchal, it's like, okay, you have to know where you're going before you're going, but the feminine doesn't work like that. The feminine works in flow, and it's like, oh, let me feel my way into this part, and oh, that feels great, and then okay, this part feels not so great, then moving again. And we are working right now with this incredible feminine energies that are supporting our evolution, that's really pushing us to reach that next level greatness as such, that I always teach about. And certainly the women and the that work with me, they come and they say, well, I want to reach my more, just the same as you. I feel I've been in corporate, I've been there, I've been in corporate for a long time. I worked in investment banking. My soul had other plans, but I had to have a bit of a kick up the butt from the universe in a way that I ended up in an accident that changed my life completely. Not everyone goes through that, but you feel that nudge from your soul, from your deep inner wisdom, that is really pulling you forward and pushing you a little bit and pushing your edges, and bringing you to a space of awareness where you go, I no longer want to be here where I am now. This doesn't feel comfortable anymore, does it?
Yeah. Well, it depends. I mean, I would say yes and no, right? I think some of my clients are very comfortable in certain ways, and it's very hard to let go of. I mean, you had to go through an accident to change. So like financially comfortable in terms of everybody around me kind of just likes this way that I have been and the role that I'm in. And then like the inner discomfort gets louder and louder. The founder of the company that I worked for 10 years, she had this expression, don't wait for a crisis to change your life. And I think some part of me already like was built to have that message, and also got to take that on from learning in that particular context. Like I'm here for those who would like to preempt the car accident. And I don't mean that in such a way, but I think there's many ways we can be nudged into transformation. We can lose a job, we can be in a car accident, we can get cancer, we can fill in the blank, right? And her story was actually that she had cancer. But I think it is also possible to say, I'm going to opt in now because I can feel the pull to something. And instead of ignoring it or staying comfortable or whatever, like there is this embodied practice really of just facing, like turning in, like, okay, what do you have for me? I don't know what's going to happen. But then, like you said earlier, that's where the magic can happen. I mean, I think that's real innovation. I'm very interested in innovation, not like technology specifically, but like innovation in the sense of like actually birthing something new, actually bringing something forward in me or in my business or in the US political system that's just not what we were doing before, for example, right? Like how do we innovate? How do we do that? I think we have to be willing to turn and face a longing, a pull, and then we have to be willing to say yes because either something really intense happened or because we're ready and we want to say yes.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. I feel, the inner intelligence, if you want to I call it the advanced intelligence that live within every person. That is what brings us to this push and pull, and where we then go, okay, I've worked in a job and maybe a 9 to 5 or whatever job and a corporate job for all my life. Yet now it feels like my soul is calling me actually forward to doing what I came here to do. However, a lot of those women that are still working in the corporate have to have this understanding, and this is what I've seen in my own work, have to have this understanding that they have a place there, and that they, through changing their energy, their outlook, and their consciousness as such, can actually bring the change in that environment, which is so important. So not everyone has to get out of that 9 to 5 job, but also be the change in that environment.
Totally. I mean, I would say I work with people on both sides. Some of my clients do leave, some stay in, but in a way, I think my mission is to help, it's not the right word, but it is rehabilitate the women who are actually their soul's purpose is to stay in, to transform the system, to lead us to the next thing. And actually they have enough access and positional power to be part of doing that. And there's a kind of a metaphor, an image that I use. It used to be the name, like a meme, like the imaginal cells in a butterfly, right? That there's a certain kind of cell in a larger system that is out of place because it's different, but actually it's the instigation of a change. And if it becomes, if it replicates, if it becomes what it's meant to become, the whole system then changes into something else. And I think there are women and men, I'm sure, but I've really dedicated a lot lately to working with women, not only women, that are positioned inside of these places, inside of these systems and these political systems, inside of corporations, inside of the nonprofit sector, the education sector, that just have the blueprint. This is one of your words, I know, or the gold print, the blueprint, the imprint of the new paradigm, the imprint of something that could be different, the imprint. Even I have clients where I'm like, you have the imprint of what this organization, whether they're the founder or not, is meant to be. Now, whether that comes to fruition, whether through them, they're choosing their influence, their presence, period, it becomes that or not, is a negotiation between them and other people for sure. But I think that's really interesting. And I see us that way. Like I see us as we are, if we're talking about organization, right? I see us as a collective of cells, a collective of imprints that if we all activate to the highest possible vibration, then the organization becomes that, or it needs to die and we go build something else. Because certainly there's things that need to go right now too. I've forgotten your question, but I feel excited about what we're talking about.
It's okay. That's exactly how creation works, right? Creation. So I teach sacred architecture, which is sacred geometry. And basically, what Spirit tried to show us, well, channeled through me, was the two triangles. That if you can imagine the coding in the body, because we all have coding in our body, if you imagine two triangles being out of sync, all right? As soon as you nudge those two triangles into alignment, what happens? The body begins to create upon itself. It's the same principle, right? And it becomes the most beautiful sacred geometry shape, and it can heal itself, and it can expand and grow and be something different. Now, once we know something, we cannot unknow that. And so something new can be birthed from that. And we can never be that same person again. And this beautiful expansion that happens is expanding so much into the collective energy and collective field. And with that, our new human gold print has been activated over time. And a lot of people, like you say, hold that new coding already within their blueprint that is here to help humans, other humans that are not necessarily at that particular step, which is, LeeAnn, where you come in as well. You are helping those humans to, really step forward with guts and grace, and to see their potential as well, and to help them move forward in a way that was different, because what they know now, they don't know necessarily what to do with that information just yet. And that's why we're here as guides, aren't we?
Oh, totally. I so many things. Oh, in a way, I would say I get to be in my work like a gateway drug. I do say this sometimes because I'm often, not always, I would say I'm interfacing with a lot of women who are either very split, like I have this side of me that is a Reiki master and, has these other capacities and maybe is channeling, or, whatever I have that's maybe I'm a deeply spiritual and connected to God. And then I have this side that's like playing masculine corporate on TV. And so I do a lot of integration work with folks who are like already fairly in touch with that part of their blueprint, but they don't see how it fits together, and they've kind of dissociated or compartmentalized. And then I also would say I have a fair number of clients that come in that are like, I don't even know that's my blueprint. I maybe I didn't even know that existed or was an option, but I just something broke, or I'm frustrated, or something, I'm stuck in some way. And then we start to kind of look, and it's like, oh yeah, she actually has a lot of capacity already there. It's just an 8 she didn't really know, or maybe she had it when she was to the point of my story earlier, 5, but she forgot about it, this kind of thing. And I think through just holding space for the curiosity about that, we get to open that box. And I forget how you called it earlier, but my way of naming some of this is like just listening to the wisdom of the body. It's kind of a gateway drug way to say it, right? Like I think what I'm learning as I continue to open myself in this way is I'm really talking about spirit. I'm really talking about maybe the types of codes or architectures or things that you're describing, but I've been blessed with a path where it's like that's not how it's being shown to me. It's just like listen to the body. Oh, right. If you listen to that, then you discover you can access that. I'm almost back in. And I think my clients are tending to be people who maybe need to back in to be willing to trust, wow, what's actually also there. I think I'm getting braver about saying that I work with spirit, and some of the ways that I do that I'm understanding more and more. But anyway, you don't have to. You can just be like, I'm willing to listen to the wisdom of my body. I don't know what that means. Great. I'm just willing to like start paying attention to like what's happening here that I can feel. And already that begins to show the path. Already that like, if you can't, like you said, you can't unsee something. You can't unlearn once you've paid attention to something, once you've gotten those triangles in alignment, once something is starting to click, it just unfolds. It begins to show you what the next step is. This is really how Guts and Grace works. We just begin to open the door a little bit, and then time after time, it's like, the next step, the person's already taking the next step before we offer the next step, because the body goes that way. It takes us to our higher calling. It takes us, I think, to spirit. Not always. You can bypass it, but I haven't found that I can look in those doors or pay attention in those ways and not find God. I haven't found that I can not find the next code. Like it takes me there.
Absolutely. The body is the access point. That's just it. For those people that feel disconnected from spirit or their spiritual self or source, God, the body is the access point to that. And when we begin to come back to the body, and this is where with the work that I'm teaching with is the mind-body-spirit unification. It's understanding that actually the body cannot function without the mind, without the spirit, and vice versa. And that's very important. However, for those people that feeling disconnected from self, the body is where it all can begin for them, where it all starts. And then we open portals and information and wisdom. And by the way, information is not yet wisdom. It has to be integrated to become wisdom. But then we begin to open portals of understanding of what steps we can take, how we can heal, what it feels like to be in that space, perhaps, of overwhelm or anxiety or trauma, and that we don't want to be there. And we begin to make different choices, don't we? So I feel like definitely for women or high-performing women, high-performing people that working in environments where perhaps there is like this push and pull feeling. A lot of that is coming to a head for people right now, where they go, okay, I know that there is something different coming through me, and that's making me feel stressed or anxious, or that's making me feel, like I want to run the other way, because that's what happens with the nervous system, right? The sympathetic nervous system is activated straight away, and we're running the other way. Yet, how can we go as leaders from feeling overwhelmed, burned out, to stepping into more bold leadership, really embracing mind, body, and spirit?
This is the question. You said a minute ago that I really appreciated, which is, it's information, it's not yet wisdom. And it reminds me that while we just said a moment ago, the body is the doorway, the body is the body can be an initiation point. It's also the completion point, because it's only once it's brought back into the body, back into practice and integrated, that it becomes embodied wisdom, or just wisdom. And I think that's part of the answer to the question you just asked. Like, how can we? We can first open, pay attention, listen, trust those instincts, those impulses. And then we can also, once we've trusted them and received more about what's actually there, then we just go chop wood, carry water. Like then we bring it back into the body again. Then we go, great, well, what's the operationalization of this? Which is a very corporate kind of word, but it's like, how do I operationalize my spiritual awakening? Well, what's the next thing you need to do? How would you sit in your chair differently if that were the new you, for example? So some of the practices that bring new information or new codes into a new kind of leadership are fairly simple, not easy, maybe, because they might be a real pattern interrupt for you, or maybe if you've opened in such a way, it is easy to actually practice something different. I was also sharing a bit that I do work with some plant medicines, and I think right now it's a hot topic, including in leadership, that we're opening our minds in these ways. We're receiving this information. Those of us who may be partaking in these kinds of substances in the various ways we may be as a society right now. But are we just getting blown open, and then are we integrating anything? Is it getting translated into who I'm being as a leader, or am I having my ayahuasca experience and coming back and being an asshole at work? I'm just saying, right? For example, right? So I think this question of how does it then become what we lead from is not a throwaway question. It really is I think, a critical question for our time.
Mm.
And I have a body of work that feels like one of maybe many bodies of work that are really good for that translation process. So we, in the work of Guts and Grace, it's a wheel ultimately. You can start anywhere on the map in a way, but if you begin at the beginning, we begin with joy, with opening to being aware of the body, with desire and longing, with these things that are sensate, and also how we choose what we do with our time, for example, which ends up being something quite concrete, but as a metaphor for everything else about who we're being. We work with both mind and body, and then we start to build from this process of releasing, recalibrating. We start to build in a very fairly slow but fast, simple but not easy way. We start to rebuild our way of being to align with this new download, new option, new possibility once some things have been shed or once some things have come through. And then it's really a matter of practice. It's a matter of, what are the practices? What are the choices that I make? What are the conversations, for example, that I have, and how I have them, that begin to make a different life? Something like that.
Yeah. And just coming back to what you said, I feel that feeling is probably the feeling part, because we are human beings here living a human experience, or spirit living a human experience, right? And we have emotions. And when we begin to feel, it helps us to release those emotional charges which are no longer serving us, and step into creating more open space for that which is ready to come through us in a big way, right? So feeling is the key here to feeling, and bringing the releasing, first of all, purifying the parts that's no longer serving, but also integrating the parts that feels better, brings us to a space of wholeness. Yes, and where we have that unification of mind, body, and spirit. And I feel that a lot of people, because of the way that we've been brought up, perhaps, social expectations, perhaps, parental expectations, whatever the case might be, it dictates how we feel our way through the world. And so a lot of people are disconnected from that feeling side of them, which also brings us back to the feminine once again, right? Feeling and flow and passionate and nurturing, and strong at the same time. Feminine is very strong. Yet ultimately, to bring us back to our bodies, to help us access those points of emotion and help us integrate the points of emotion, we have to begin to feel what feels in alignment, what feels off, what's our gut telling us, right? What's our soul wanting to say through our heart space? Are we listening to our heart? Are we disconnected from the earth, from the animal kingdom, from the plant kingdom as such? And you beautifully mentioned about, plant medicine. I certainly believe plant medicine has a place. I don't personally use plant medicine. I have a clear channel to source, and that is my medicine. But I believe that there is a space for plant medicine, and that it is teaching humanity so much about themselves, and it is opening pathways and gateways to help us understand and also integrate those parts of us that's, needing to be integrated. It's opening up realms that we have not accessed before, which then helps us to understand ourselves and the world around us in a very, very different way, isn't it?
Totally. I think it creates motivation too, if done well. And I want to come back to emotion, but to riff on what you just brought at the very end here, I would say, I've never said this before, but I'm going to say now, I think the best possible scenario at this moment for humans who are not currently, indigenous, and it's not part of my ongoing culture to work with plant medicine, but for those of us who are finding our way into it anew, and the best possible outcome is it opens a connection to something that actually gives me just enough motivation to do the hard work that it is to heal, to feel, to like do the integration. Like, oh, that could be possible for me. And I can relate to this in my own journey. Like, that could be possible if only I were, we're whole. And how am I going to get there? I'm going to have to feel my feelings. I'm going to have to face a conversation with my sister that I wish I didn't have to have. Like the sort of humaning part of what happens post we work with these substances is where we then get to retain, integrate the opening, or we don't, and we just go back to our old habits. So I hope that
That's what a
those
lot of people do. Hey.
have the courage,
Mm.
and that we feel inspired enough, and we can have the courage to become the human that I was when I was in the ceremony. Like that actually that can become more and more who I'm being more of the time. Now, that might be that I only worked with a substance once, or I do it every other week. Then it doesn't matter. It's like, am I doing the simple but not easy kind of grunt work? And again, I think that's what I love about Guts and Grace is it came to me as a technology to help us do that simple stuff, like to feel,
Yeah.
to speak about emotions. Oh, so important. The way our curriculum works, we don't start there. It's kind of in the middle. It's like, let's like grease the wheels a little, build some resilience. Okay, then let's go into the emotion territory, because emotion territory, especially at this moment, is also the trauma territory, is also the needs to release and, like you said, move through or make space, allow some of these things to go kind of territory. And I think it's a really important and tricky territory at this moment in time for women, especially women who may have been in leadership roles. So I think there's an interesting thing in the zeitgeist right now where, for sure, the men have been over masculine, and then it's like everybody loves a good emotional guy, right? Like you're at work and your boss shows his feelings and everyone's like, yay, like this is a great man. He like shows his feelings. Like it's not easy for men. I don't mean to say that at all. If you're watching this and you're in a male body, that's not where I'm going. But I'm just saying there is a certain, I think, upliftment of feeling more in the workplace, especially if you're in a male body, and it's not that complicated. It's just like, good job, yeah. Like not every workplace. We're not all there yet, but we're going in this direction where it's like we're gonna commend that, especially in like a conscious business or something, business with a good culture. I hang out with like conscious capitalists and people in the B Corp community. It's like, yeah, we love the man who can like feel his feelings. Now, if you're a woman, I don't think we're quite in that place. I think there's more complexity. I think there's for sure you need to heal, right? This is baseline. I'm with you, and then I'm like, well, what makes it challenging to say yes to this? I think if you're a woman, um, we still receive a certain amount of oppression slash fear slash different thing. Like if I'm showing my anger and I'm a woman, like there's a lot of complexity in showing it, right? And it's not that I'm necessarily going to be uplifted or commended in the same way. So it's like, yes, feel your feelings. That is the way to heal, but also you still might not get the promotion because you're too emotional. Like there's still a lot of that around it for women. And I think the complexity is also that we as women, having not had a lot of role models of an exalted, fully expressed, centered feminine. Also, it's like how we know to do it is kind of shadowy. Like there's kind of a hook into like a version of like pain that is us feeling our feelings, and we don't always know how to detangle from maybe the authentic, simply moving the emotion and the I'm going to talk about myself because I feel like this can get a little triggery, but like I'm an Enneagram 4. My build is to like go down into the drama and the depth and like be over like I can fall apart really well and make a huge mess of it and everybody else and be a really good victim. And this is very compelling, and it's like one of the models of what we know, how we know we could feel our feelings, and that we don't get free there. Actually, we don't totally heal there, but it's like we don't have a lot of good other examples of this. So I think there's a fine line to walk as a woman to learn how to feel your feelings in a way that actually is healing, that isn't just replicating or like re-eating your own trauma, and also that isn't overwriting them or pushing through them. So it is really something that I care deeply about. And I love that you brought it up. And I think it's like one of the main keys or doorways to everything that's on the other side that you're talking about. So may we maybe learn to walk this path, all of us together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about your story as well. I think it always works when we relate, back to our experiences as such, and we can give examples. So thank you for that. But not, one size does certainly not fit all. We are all very individual, very unique beings, and what works for one person might not work for another person. And so that's why it's very important to begin to be in touch with your feelings, your emotions, what works for you, and very much championing that. That's the way that I teach. That's my leadership style, and being really sovereign and unapologetic within yourself, stepping into a space of I am, I can, and be willing to do that, because often it feels scary to be seen, to be, witnessed, to be heard, to be understood for who we truly are at the core of our being. That little girl, that joyful dancing woman that we hide away in the corporate. And it's so important for us to unapologetically share that, so that people can really see the real us. And because a lot more people relate to that realness than the one size fits all, or it all fits in one kind of box thing. I'm definitely not that type of person. I throw the box away, in file 13. I smash the box in pieces. That's not how we work here. If we want to be the change and make the change that we came here to make, then we have to truly rise and to this, have the capacity and the willingness to be able to see life in a different way, and to make the steps in order to access those parts of us that are perhaps uncomfortable, fearful. And what I always say is, most people are not afraid of their fear. They're afraid of their power. They're afraid of their greatness, what lies on the other side, because it's the unknown. And that's where all the opportunities and possibilities lie. And when we begin to willingly, openly, begin to surrender more to those parts of us that can be a beautiful journey, and yet a very difficult journey at some points, as with the purifications that we have to go through. It's not easy. I run an initiation program for students, and it used to be a 7-month, and it's reduced to a 4-month initiation program for healers, Centaur healers. And throughout that process, they go through purification. They literally decode what they thought they were, or the untruths, in order to come back into their full original blueprint. And so it's a process. And when we get to that point and we look back, and they look back and they go, oh my gosh, that was like a really crazy 3 months that I've just gone through. But you can move forward, and you can look back and go, I've done it. I'm stronger for it. I'm more courageous. I have more information now. And also I'm embodying that wisdom that is truly feeling like it's been integrated, and it feels juicy, and it feels magnetic, and it feels magical. And from that space, I can move forward. So I feel that then we have the confidence. Yes, the unapologetic confidence to move forward. So if you had to share 3 tips for building more confidence in leadership, what would you share with people today?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to start where you ended, which is be willing to let go of something. Maybe even something that is a little sacred to you, or you feel really attached to, because to your point, on the other side of that, there is certainly freedom, a certain kind of freedom, and probably either a version of it that's going to come back to you that actually is yours, or something even better that you can't imagine. So 1, be willing to let go of something. Number 2, trust your body. It may lie in certain ways, but if you're listening, like if you're really listening, you're going to get, no matter what you need, you're going to get some piece of information or some part of an answer that is exactly what you need. And number 3, dance.
Oh,
All the reasons that you wouldn't dance are all the things that are holding you back. So try it on.
love those. Thank you so much for sharing your tips and your wisdom today. It's been such a hoot, really, chatting to you today. And I feel like we could have gone many different places with this conversation, but let's end it there. And thank you so much, LeeAnn, and all the work that you're doing as well. You know, it's beautiful work. So if you want to check out LeeAnn's work, I'll be sharing the links, her links and everything beneath this video and this podcast. So thank you for listening to this and watching this. From my heart to yours until we speak again. Much love. See you soon.